Welcome to Storyline English Motivation. Hello everyone, welcome back to Deep Motivation Biography, the channel where true stories inspire us to dream bigger, work harder, and never give up. Today's story is about a man who was born in a small wooden cabin, lived in deep poverty, failed many times, faced heartbreaking losses, and yet became one of the greatest leaders in history. This is the real and inspiring story of Abraham Lincoln, a man who proved that no dream is too big when your courage is bigger than your fear. If this story inspires you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with who needs motivation today. Now, let's begin. On a cold winter day, February 12, 1809, in a tiny log cabin in Kentucky, a baby boy was born. His parents named him Abraham. No one could imagine that this little boy would one day change the history of a nation. Abraham's family was very poor. They had little money, very few possessions, and life was full of difficulties. Every day was a struggle. They worked hard just to find enough food to eat. There were no comfortable beds, no electricity, and no modern schools. Their small cabin was simple, but inside it lived a family that believed in hard work and honesty. Abraham's father, Thomas Lincoln, worked as a farmer and carpenter. His mother, Nancy Hanks Lincoln, was kind, gentle, and loving. She taught young Abraham an important lesson that stayed with him for the rest of his life. Always tell the truth, always respect others, and never stop learning. As Abraham grew older, he became different from many other children. While others spent their free time playing, he loved asking questions. He wanted to know how the world worked. He wanted to understand people, nature, and life itself. Books became his best friends. But there was one problem. Books were extremely rare where Abraham lived. His family could not afford to buy them. Whenever he heard that someone in a nearby village owned a book, he walked long distances just to borrow it. Sometimes he walked several miles through forests and muddy roads. After working all day on the farm, he would sit near the fireplace at night and read by the light of burning wood, because there were no lamps bright enough for studying. His clothes were old and worn out. His hands were rough from hard work. Yet inside his heart burned a powerful dream. He believed that education could change his life. When Abraham was only 9 years old, tragedy struck his family. His beloved mother became seriously ill. Despite everyone's prayers, Nancy Lincoln passed away. The little boy who loved his mother more than anything suddenly found himself standing beside her grave. The pain was unbearable. For many days, Abraham remained quiet. The house felt empty. The warm voice that had always encouraged him was gone forever. But before she died, his mother had planted something inside him that could never be taken away: hope. Months later, Thomas Lincoln married Sarah Bush Johnston. She became Abraham's stepmother. Sarah treated Abraham with love and kindness. She noticed how much he loved reading and learning. Unlike many people, she never laughed at his dreams. Instead, she encouraged them. Whenever Abraham picked up a book, she smiled proudly. She once said that Abraham was the best boy she had ever known. Those words gave him confidence. Years passed. The Lincoln family moved to Indiana and later to Illinois in search of better opportunities. Life did not become easier. The family still worked from sunrise to sunset. Abraham chopped wood, carried heavy logs, planted crops, built fences, and helped with every difficult job. Because of his strength, people later called him the rail splitter. Yet something special separated him from everyone else. While others rested after work, Abraham continued reading. He borrowed every book he could find. He read history. He read law. He read science. He read biographies of great leaders. Each page made him dream a little bigger. Many people thought dreaming was useless for a poor farmer. But Abraham believed that dreams were the beginning of every great achievement. As he entered his teenage years, Abraham became very tall. Eventually, he grew to more than 6 feet 4 inches, making him one of the tallest men around. People noticed his height first, then they noticed something even greater, his kindness. He never liked bullying. Whenever he saw someone being treated unfairly, he stood beside them. He believed every human being deserved respect. Even as a young man, people trusted him because he was honest. If he accidentally received too much money while working in a store, he walked miles just to return the extra coins. People began calling him Honest Abe. It was not a title he asked for. It was a title he earned. Slowly, his reputation spread throughout the community. People realized that this young man cared more about doing what was right than becoming rich. Abraham did many different jobs. He worked on farms, he split rails, he operated a ferry. He worked as a store clerk. He served as a postmaster. Every job taught him something new. He listened carefully whenever older people shared their experiences. He believed wisdom could be found everywhere. Even failure could become a teacher. Little did Abraham know that life was about to test him again and again. The road ahead would be filled with heartbreak, disappointment, rejection, and loss. Many people would have given up. Many people would have accepted an ordinary life. But Abraham Lincoln was different. Every obstacle only made him stronger. Every failure prepared him for a greater success. The poor boy from the small log cabin had not yet become a lawyer. He had not yet entered politics. He had not yet become president. But the foundation of greatness was already being built. One book, one honest act, and one difficult day at a time. And soon, the biggest challenges of his life would begin. The years passed, and Abraham Lincoln slowly became a young man. He was still poor, but something inside him had changed. Every difficult day had made him stronger. Every book he read had expanded his mind. Every challenge had taught him patience. One day, Abraham decided that he wanted more from life. He did not want to spend his entire life working in the fields. He wanted to learn, to help people, and to make a difference. But dreams alone were not enough. He needed courage. At the age of 22, Abraham left home and started building a life of his own in the small village of New Salem, Illinois. It was a simple town filled with hard-working people. Abraham arrived with almost nothing. He had no wealth, no important family name, and no special connections. All he had was honesty, determination, and a dream. He accepted every job he could find. Sometimes he carried heavy goods. Sometimes he worked in a general store. Sometimes he helped people with physical labor. No work was too small for him because he believed that honest work always had value. The people of New Salem quickly noticed something special about Abraham. He never lied. He never cheated. He never broke his promises. If someone needed help, Abraham was always ready. He listened carefully to everyone, whether they were rich or poor. He treated every person with the same respect. Soon, the entire town trusted him. One day, Abraham and a friend decided to open a small general store. They believed the business would give them a better future. For a short time, everything seemed hopeful, but business was difficult. Sales were low, money became scarce. Finally, the store failed. The business closed, leaving Abraham with a huge debt. For many people, this would have been the end of their dream. Some would have blamed others. Some would have given up. But Abraham accepted responsibility. He promised that every dollar he owed would be repaid. It took him many years, but he kept that promise. People admired him because they knew his word could always be trusted. Life tested him again. During this period, Abraham fell deeply in love with a young woman named Anne Rutledge. She was kind, intelligent, and believed in Abraham's future. For the first time in many years, Abraham felt truly happy. He imagined a life filled with love, family, and hope. But fate had another plan. Anne became seriously ill. Despite every effort, she passed away at a very young age. Her death broke Abraham's heart. The cheerful young man became quiet and lonely. Friends worried about him because the sadness seemed endless. There were days when he could hardly smile. There were nights when sleep would not come. Yet even in his deepest pain, Abraham discovered an important truth. Pain can either destroy you or shape you. He chose to let it shape him. Instead of running away from his grief, he buried himself in study. He spent long hours reading books about history, government, and especially law. He had never attended a law school. He could not afford one, so he became his own teacher. Every evening he read until his eyes grew tired. Every morning he woke up determined to learn something new. His friends often found him sitting under a tree with a book in his hands. They laughed sometimes, wondering why a poor farmer wanted to study so much. Abraham simply smiled. He knew that education was opening doors no amount of money could buy. Around this time, Abraham also became interested in politics. He believed that ordinary people deserved honest leaders. He believed government should serve everyone, not just the powerful. With great courage, he decided to run for the Illinois state legislature. It was a bold decision. He was young, he was poor, he was unknown. Many people thought he had no chance. The election came. The votes were counted. Abraham Lincoln lost. Another painful failure, another broken dream. But this time something remarkable happened. Instead of feeling defeated, Abraham thanked everyone who had supported him. He congratulated his opponents. Then he quietly returned to work, refused to let one defeat define his future. He often said that success belongs to those who keep moving forward after failure. His positive attitude impressed many people. They began to see that this young man possessed qualities that could not be measured by money or titles. He was honest, he was hardworking, he admitted his mistakes, and most importantly, he never stopped trying. While studying law, Abraham continued improving his speaking skills. Whenever people gathered in the village, he shared thoughtful ideas about fairness, freedom, and opportunity. He did not speak loudly to impress people. He spoke from the heart. His words were simple. His message was clear. People listened. Some nodded with agreement. Others left feeling inspired. Slowly, Abraham Lincoln was becoming more than just a hard-working young man. He was becoming a leader. The road ahead was still long. Greater victories waited for him, but even greater challenges were coming. Soon, Abraham would become a lawyer, enter public office, and begin a journey that would eventually lead him to the highest position in America. The poor boy from the log cabin was taking his first real steps toward history, and the world was about to learn the name Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln's life was beginning to change, but success did not come overnight. Every step forward required patience, sacrifice, and endless determination. The failures of the past had not disappeared, but they had made him stronger than ever before. With his dreams still alive, Abraham continued studying law on his own. He borrowed every law book he could find and spent countless hours reading and taking notes. There were no expensive classrooms, no famous professors, and no easy shortcuts. His classroom was wherever he could sit with a book, and his teachers were the words written on its pages. Finally, after years of hard work, Abraham passed the examination and became a lawyer. It was one of the happiest moments of his life. The poor boy who had once read books beside the light of a fireplace had now entered one of the most respected professions in the country. He moved to Springfield, Illinois, where he began practicing law. At first, success came slowly. Some days he had very few clients, some days he earned almost nothing. But Abraham never lost hope. He prepared every case carefully. He treated every client with honesty, whether they were rich or poor. If he believed a person was guilty or dishonest, he often refused to defend them because he believed that justice was more important than money. People admired his character. Soon his reputation spread across Illinois. As he traveled from town to town on horseback to attend court, he met farmers, workers, business owners, and families from every background. He listened to their struggles and understood their problems. These journeys taught him that true leadership begins by listening. Around this time, Abraham met a well-educated and intelligent woman named Mary Todd. Mary believed Abraham was destined for greatness. Although they came from very different backgrounds, they shared a love for learning and public service. After facing many personal challenges in their relationship, Abraham and Mary were married in 1842. Together they built a family and were blessed with children. Abraham loved his family deeply. Even during his busiest days, he tried to spend time with his children, laughing and playing with them whenever he could. But life continued to test him. Some of his children became seriously ill, and the loss of one of his young sons brought deep sorrow to the family. Abraham carried this pain quietly, but instead of allowing sadness to make him bitter, it made him more compassionate toward the suffering of others. Meanwhile, his interest in politics continued to grow. People respected him not because he was wealthy or powerful, but because they believed he spoke the truth. He was elected to the Illinois state legislature, where he worked hard to improve the lives of ordinary people. Later, he was elected to the United States Congress. Although his time in Congress was important, Abraham soon returned to his law practice. For a while, it seemed that his political career might be over. But history had different plans. A great question was dividing the nation. Should slavery continue to spread across America? Millions of men, women, and children were living as slaves. They had no freedom. Families were separated. Human beings were bought and sold like property. Abraham Lincoln believed this was wrong. He believed that every person deserved dignity and the chance to live in freedom. His speeches against the spread of slavery began attracting attention across the country. Some people praised him. Others strongly opposed him. Many powerful leaders criticized his ideas. But Abraham refused to change his principles just to gain popularity. He once said that doing what is right is more important than doing what is easy. As his speeches became more famous, people recognized him as one of the strongest voices for justice and equality. His debates with Senator Stephen Douglas became legendary. Thousands of people gathered to hear them speak. Newspapers printed their arguments, and people across America discussed Abraham Lincoln's ideas. Although Lincoln did not win that election, something extraordinary happened. The entire nation now knew his name. His honesty, intelligence, and calm leadership impressed millions of people. Without realizing it, Abraham Lincoln was moving closer to the greatest responsibility of his life. Soon, the people of America would face one of the most important elections in their history. And the poor boy who had once lived in a tiny log cabin would stand before the nation as a candidate for the highest office in the land. His greatest challenge and his greatest test was about to begin. The journey of Abraham Lincoln had taken him from a poor log cabin to the national stage. But the greatest test of his life was still waiting for him. The year was 1860. America was deeply divided. People argued about slavery, the rights of states, and the future of the nation. Many believed the country was moving toward a terrible conflict. In the middle of this uncertainty, Abraham Lincoln became the presidential candidate of the Republican Party. Many people doubted him. Some newspapers called him too inexperienced. Others laughed at his simple appearance. His opponents were powerful, wealthy, and well-known. But Lincoln believed that character was stronger than popularity. He traveled across the country, speaking with honesty and hope. Instead of making impossible promises, he spoke about unity, justice, hard work, and freedom. His speeches touched the hearts of ordinary people. Farmers trusted him, workers believed in him, young people admired him. Family saw him as a man who understood struggle because he had lived through it himself. On November 6, 1860, the votes were counted. Abraham Lincoln was elected the 16th President of the United States. For a brief moment, it seemed like the greatest dream of his life had come true. But celebration quickly turned into crisis. Even before Lincoln entered the White House, several Southern states announced that they would leave the Union. The nation was breaking apart. Many people feared that America would no longer exist as one country. Friends stood on opposite sides. Families were divided. The atmosphere was filled with fear. Lincoln understood that becoming president was not a reward. It was a responsibility. On March 4, 1861, he took the presidential oath. Standing before thousands of people, he promised to protect the Constitution and preserve the Union. Only a few weeks later, everything changed. The first shots of the American Civil War were fired. The country entered one of the darkest periods in its history. The war was long. It was painful. Thousands of soldiers lost their lives. Families waited every day for news from the battlefield. Many never saw their loved ones return home. Every morning, President Lincoln received reports filled with heartbreaking numbers. Victories, defeats, casualties, destroyed towns, broken families. The weight on his shoulders became heavier every single day. Some people blamed him for every defeat. Others criticized every decision he made. Newspapers attacked him. Political leaders argued with him. Many demanded that he resign, but Lincoln refused to give up. Late at night, while others slept, he remained in his office reading reports, writing letters, and searching for the best decisions. He knew that every choice could affect millions of lives. Although the pressure was enormous, he never allowed anger to control him. He listened carefully before making decisions. He believed that great leaders remain calm during the greatest storms. As the war continued, Lincoln became convinced that preserving the Union alone was not enough. The nation also had to confront the injustice of slavery. Millions of people had spent their entire lives without freedom. Lincoln believed that no human being should own another human being. On January 1, 1863, he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This historic document declared freedom for enslaved people in the states that were in rebellion. It was one of the boldest decisions of his presidency. Some celebrated, others protested, but Lincoln believed history would judge the decision by its moral purpose, not by political popularity. He once said that whenever he heard someone argue for slavery, he imagined how they would feel if slavery were forced upon them. His compassion came from his ability to see every person as equally valuable. Despite the progress, the war continued. The cost grew higher, the pain became deeper. Yet Lincoln never stopped believing that peace would eventually come. He reminded the nation that hatred could never build a better future. Only forgiveness, courage, and unity could heal a broken country. One of his most unforgettable moments came after the Battle of Gettysburg. Standing before the graves of fallen soldiers, Lincoln delivered one of the greatest speeches in history. His words were simple, his speech was short, but its message inspired generations. He reminded the nation that democracy must continue to live, and that the sacrifices of those soldiers should never be forgotten. The entire country listened. Many people left with tears in their eyes. They realized they were witnessing not just a president, but a leader whose greatest strength was his humanity. The boy who had once borrowed books because he could not afford them was now leading an entire nation through its darkest hour. And although the road ahead still held heartbreak, Abraham Lincoln had already proven one timeless truth. A person's beginning does not decide their ending. The choices they make every single day do. The long and painful war was finally coming to an end. For 4 years, the people of America had lived with fear, loss, and uncertainty. Thousands of families had lost fathers, sons, brothers, and friends. Towns had been destroyed, and the nation carried deep emotional wounds. Through every difficult moment, Abraham Lincoln never stopped believing that peace would return. In April 1865, the Confederate Army surrendered, and the American Civil War effectively came to an end. The streets filled with celebration. Church bells rang across cities. People sang songs of joy. Families hugged one another with tears in their eyes. At last, the fighting was over. Many expected President Lincoln to celebrate his victory with pride. Instead, he spoke about forgiveness. He did not want revenge. He wanted healing. He believed that a nation divided by hatred could never become strong again. In one of his most memorable messages, he encouraged Americans to move forward with malice toward none, with charity for all. Those words reflected the kind of man he had always been, a leader who chose compassion over revenge. Lincoln now dreamed of rebuilding the nation. He wanted former enemies to become fellow citizens once again. He hoped children would grow up in a country where freedom and opportunity belonged to everyone. But destiny had one final, heartbreaking chapter. On the evening of April 14, 1865, President Lincoln and his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, attended a play at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. For the first time in many months, Lincoln allowed himself a quiet evening. He smiled. He laughed. No one knew it would be his last night. During the performance, actor John Wilkes Booth, who strongly opposed Lincoln, entered the presidential box. A single gunshot echoed through the theater. The audience froze. Confusion turned into panic. President Lincoln had been shot. Doctors rushed to help him, but his injury was too severe. He was carried across the street to a nearby house, where people stayed beside him throughout the night. On the morning of April 15, 1865, Abraham Lincoln passed away at the age of 56. The news spread across the nation like a wave of sorrow. People cried openly in the streets, churches filled with mourners, businesses closed, flags were lowered. The country had lost the leader who had guided it through its darkest years. His funeral train traveled through many cities, allowing millions of people to pay their final respects. Rich and poor stood together. Soldiers saluted. Children placed flowers along the tracks. Many had never met Abraham Lincoln, yet they felt as if they had lost a member of their own family. Why? Because Lincoln had shown the world that true greatness is not measured by wealth, fame, or power. It is measured by honesty, by courage, by kindness, by the willingness to stand for what is right, even when standing alone. Today, more than 150 years after his death, Abraham Lincoln continues to inspire people around the world. Students study his speeches, leaders learn from his example, ordinary people remember his perseverance. His life reminds us that failure is never the end. He lost elections. He faced business failures. He experienced heartbreaking personal losses. He was criticized more than most leaders of his time. Yet he refused to surrender. He kept learning. He kept growing. He kept moving forward. That is why history remembers him as one of the greatest leaders the world has ever known. If Abraham Lincoln's life teaches us anything, it is this: your present circumstances do not define your future. It does not matter where you were born. It does not matter how poor you are today. It does not matter how many times you have failed. What matters is your character, your determination, and your willingness to keep going when life becomes difficult. Every great achievement begins with a single decision: to never give up. The little boy who once studied by the light of a fireplace became a president because he believed that knowledge, honesty, and perseverance could change a life. And they did. Maybe today you are facing your own struggles. Maybe people doubt you. Maybe you have failed more than once. Remember Abraham Lincoln. Remember that every setback can become preparation for something greater. Never stop learning. Never stop believing. Never stop working toward your dream. One day, your story may inspire someone else, just as Abraham Lincoln's story continues to inspire millions today. Thank you for watching this inspiring journey on Deep Motivation Biography. If Abraham Lincoln's story motivated you, please like this video, Subscribe to Deep Motivation Biography and share it with your friends and family so that together we can spread inspiration around the world. Until our next story, keep believing in yourself, keep working hard, and remember, your greatest success may be just one step beyond the challenge you are facing today. Thank you, and see you in the next video.